Probably. Are we ready? Okay. I'd like to call the April 1st Planning Commission called meeting to order. Please allow me to read into the record, in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, a copy of the agenda was posted on radio, TV, with TV stations, newspapers, and posted on the bulletin board, and also in the county administration building, and also provided to persons that requested the information. So we're delighted to have all of you here with us today at our April 1st. This is not an April Fool's Day meeting, but we're delighted that you were able to come to join us. Second item on our agenda today, or the third item on our agenda today, is the additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda, commission members? Hearing none, then we'll move to item number 4, which is items for discussion, action, amendment of the rules of procedures. Mr. Price.
Yes, sir. I believe that each one of you received an email from our county attorney, Mr. Wright, regarding the September and 2021 and the December 2021 elections. Specifically, that there was probably an oversight. I think probably the best way to put it, in establishing those elections in which we didn't place on the agenda, that we needed to amend the rules of procedure, which was seemed to be required to follow the FOIA rules. So in order to correct those, we need to amend the rules of procedure and then have the election of officers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Price. Attorney is here, the county attorney is here with us today, and we're so delighted that you took a few minutes out of your schedule. This might be a really good time if you want to walk us through exactly what transpired in terms of requiring us to have this discussion, and then we'll allow the commissioners to ask you any questions we may have and go from there. Will that work, sir?
Okay.
Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. Nice to be here. My name is Patrick Wright. I'm the county attorney. Basically, I did give a legal opinion regarding a question that was asked, and just wanted to make sure that we will comply with the FOIA statute. So I don't think it's necessary to go into all the details. It's just that in order to comply, I think it does require that kind of redo what was done in September or December, just to make sure it complies with the statute. And unless there's some specific questions, I think that's as far as I'll go into it.
Okay. Commissioners, are there any discussions? We all received information from the county attorney. We all also received additional correspondences. So I just wanted to ask if there are any questions from any of the commissioners for the attorney.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Frison.
Good morning, Attorney Wright. It's a privilege to meet you for the first time. I have not had that privilege, and I appreciate very much the fact that you took the time to respond to the inquiry. Would you please explain for the public and for me and the commissioners the importance of complying with a FOIA mandate, and also the ramifications if for whatever reason the commission decided to ignore the advice that you presented to us?
Okay. Well, of course, as far as the FOIA statute, it's state law, so we're, all public bodies must abide by it. And as far as the potential ramifications, of course, this body answers to the county council. So my legal opinion is an advisory opinion, but I would be required to let county council know what's going on if I know what comes to my attention. So that would be a requirement for me, based on me being basically an arm of county council as the county attorney. So that would happen. And of course, county council is required to abide by the statute as well. So since both the planning commission and county council are public bodies, both are required to abide by FOIA. So any potential ramifications would be, whatever county council determined they needed to do to correct things if this body didn't correct it. And if county council didn't, then the ramifications would be, potentially for them too. So I think that's why, just out of an abundance of caution, we want to make sure things are done in the proper procedure, as the statute says we need to do it.
Thank you, Attorney Wright. I have another question. I don't know if all of you received correspondence from one of the commissioners, and it was in reference to his opinion as to your legal opinion. Attorney Wright, are elections important, or are elections important in the manner in which they're carried out?
Of course, elections are important, because they determine the people who preside and direct meetings, and do other things, as far as required by the rules of procedure. So yes, they are important for this body, for county council, and for the public. So I think that's something that, I think everybody would agree with, that they're public. And as far as procedure wise, we just want to make sure that we do follow proper procedure, and, they're there for a reason. And we just want to make sure that we do things in order.
I said one question. I declare. I'll
Go
just
right
ask
ahead,
one.
Commissioner.
Thank
No,
you.
no worries.
Okay, I know we're all commissioners, and if we are given information as to the rationale for doing something, and that rationale is blatantly false, is that a problem as well?
Well,
And if I need to be more specific, I will be. I was just trying to be polite.
Well, what I'll say is that I think and I think everybody would agree that it's important to make sure that, we do things in the proper order, so that if anything is ever questioned, we can say that, okay, we did things the proper way.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Wright.
Hey, Mr. Gilchrist?
Mr. Brandon? Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify for anybody who may be wondering why Mr. Gilchrist has called the meeting to order. It's because we kind of we wanted to follow the advice given by the county attorney to have Mr. Gilchrist as the officer who is presiding prior to the September meeting, called this meeting to order. And otherwise, I just want to, if we need to make a motion for it, I would like to make a motion that we follow the county attorney's advice, in that we would conduct an election of officers and hear any motions as to amendments of the rule.
Unreadiness. It's just that you put two things together. It's not that I disagree at all with what you said about following the county attorney's advice, but then you added the other part about the election. If you don't mind, could you subdivide it and deal with one thing at a time?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
So, unless there's further discussion, I'd like to make a motion as
Yeah,
to.
I do have a couple of questions for the
Okay.
attorney,
Sorry.
but if you want to make the motion, that's fine, but I do
Sure.
want to ask the attorney a couple of other additional questions.
Why don't you go ahead with that, and I'll make the motion.
Okay?
later.
Thank you, Mr. Branham. Mr. Wright, again, thank you for being here today. You mentioned several times this morning that it's important for us to follow the proper procedures. Would you agree that both the September and December meetings that we did not follow the proper procedures? Is that right?
In review of the transcripts, the minutes, it did appear that there were a couple of things that I would think would need to be, should have been done differently. And out of an abundance of caution, I recommended that they be done over, to be done appropriately.
There were several references, I recall, Commissioners, and y'all can help me with this, when we were debating how we would do our elections at that time, that we wanted to ensure that not only that we follow the proper procedures, but that we also ensure that every member of the commission had the opportunity to weigh in on what some of those revisions could be or should be. And so I'm delighted that I think all of our commissioners are here today. Is that right? We have everybody here, and I want to make sure that we have an opportunity for you to weigh in on the subject matter, just so that as we move forward in taking whatever vote we take to ensure that we're electing officers again, that we're doing it in the manner that the county attorney has advised us. Does that make sense? So anyway, I just wanted to just make a couple of comments referencing that. Any additional comments from commissioners? Branham.
Oh, thank you. Here. Well, yeah, I'm trying to take these one at a time. As to that item 5A on the agenda, amendment of the rules of procedure, took votes to amend one rule, to make one amendment to the rule in September, and then one to make an amendment to the rule in December. And so I'd like to just present those again to the body to, determine if that's still our will. So the motion is to amend Rule Article 1, Section 2, to add the following sentence to the end of said rule. In the event an officer ceases to serve for whatever reason prior to the completion of the term of office, a special election shall be conducted at the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission, and the person elected shall serve for the remainder of the term of the officer the person is succeeding.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we amend the rules of the Planning Commission to appoint an officer to fill out the term. Now, question that I have, considering that, Mr. Attorney, you could probably help me. So do we go back to as if we are now back in September, and if we choose to amend these rules, will it take place at the time that this occurred in September, or is it going forward?
The amendment of the rules would be going forward.
Okay.
From this meeting.
Okay. All right. All right. Any additional discussion on this? And so if we amend these rules today, then that gives us the ability to elect an officer today. Is that what you're referencing, Mr. Branham?
For me, reading the county attorney's opinion as to the election of officers and the timing, it's my understanding that we need to conduct an election of officers today, regardless of whether we amend the rules of procedure. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
I have a question. It's to the chair and to the attorney. If we move forward and elect officers today, would that be the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary?
that whatever officers that y'all are required to have elections for, I know that in September and December, there were, I guess, certain officers elected at those times. So to make sure that we're compliant with the procedure and the rules and the statute, I think those have to be done today. And as I think the rules of procedure calls for at the first meeting, which this is the first meeting that y'all have had since I issued the opinion.
Okay.
So the whatever officers that y'all are supposed to do at that first meeting, that's what you do today.
Thank you.
One additional
Mr. Chair? Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
Just to ask for confirmation, the state statute 629-360, it does provide that the secretary may be staff. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I know we looked at that statute, I believe, in our last meeting, and I think we were trying to determine whether or not the commission should probably move forward, given the fact that while the statute may call for that, our rules certainly indicate that we have the ability to appoint a secretary. Is that right, Mr.
Right.
Attorney?
It's right. It's the commission's decision whether they want it to be a commissioner or staff.
I would encourage us, given what we encountered just in the last couple of episodes of this saga, that we elect the officers that the rules call for. I think that in light of any discrepancy and confusion about what we don't do according to our rules, if the rules are allowing us to do it, I think we should certainly consider electing the officers that the rules call for. And I believe in our rules, it calls for a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary. So I would encourage our commission to certainly consider that. Ms. Branham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just ask if we could go ahead and vote on the amendment that talk more about election.
Okay, that's fine. So it's been moved and properly second on the amendment of the rules. All in favor signify by roll call vote. Mr. Price.
Those in favor of the motion,
Could you please repeat the motion, Mr. Price?
I believe I have it here. This will be an amendment to Article 1, Section 2, second paragraph. In the event that y'all don't have the second paragraph. This will be a new paragraph. In the event that any seat of the officers of the commission becomes vacant during the calendar year, a special election shall be held to fill the vacancy, and that person shall complete the term of the officer that's being replaced.
All right, ready for the roll call vote.
All right, those in favor of that motion, Yonke,
Aye.
Carlisle, Frierson,
Aye.
Metz, Branham,
Aye.
Grady,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Gilchrist,
Aye.
Dennis.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Carries. All right, and now we are down to item B.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
Sorry. I did have a second motion as to the amendment of
Okay.
the rules. And this, I move to amend Article 1, Section 2 of the Rules of Procedure of this commission to replace the time at which regular annual officer elections are conducted. Whereas the current rule calls for elections to occur in the first meeting of the calendar year, the proposed rule amendment is to conduct regular annual officer elections in December of each calendar year.
Unreadiness and something else I need to bring to your attention. Prior to our voting on this matter, you had a motion that had 2 parts. And remember, I said, would you please subdivide it? And you said, okay. And one of those was to follow the recommendations of the county attorney, and then we went to this other part. Could we go back to the subdivision of that? And if you don't feel comfortable making the motion, I will.
I think already following the advice of the county attorney. So the motion was the motion. It was for the purposes of following the advice of the county attorney, but my motion wasn't to follow the advice itself.
Help me parliamentarian if we have one. I'm not ready for that particular motion.
Well, did you withdraw that motion, that second motion, Mr. Branham, that two-part motion earlier? You didn't withdraw it, did you?
Well, I mean, if you want to call it an amendment of it, I have it written down, and I read, what the motion was. I said, I move to, and that was the motion. So, we took the vote. Now I'm making
Well,
another
I think we're
motion.
done with that vote. I'm talking about the second part of that it was a two-part piece to that, was it not? At least, it may not have been.
It's a second motion. I'm not sure. Maybe
Okay.
somebody else can
All right.
help me understand. It's
May
a
not have
second
been.
motion. Okay.
So you're headed now to make a second motion on the amendment of the rules, is that right?
Yes, and this is in effect the motion that was made in December that the commission voted on in December. So, just trying to put back before the commission those same motions that were deemed we ought to take up again.
Mr. Attorney, but the rules do not, so we're fine with being able to amend those rules again to change the time frame of when we would elect officers now? We can,
Well, what my opinion was regarding the statute mostly. What this is that your rules of procedure say that as far as that amendment, that it will be at a regular meeting. This is a special meeting, so, but I leave that to the commission to determine what they want to do as far as that. So this is a special called meeting.
Elect the officers.
Right, specifically to correct what happened previously. And so the initial amendment, in order to allow that to happen, so we can have elections, is fine.
Yeah.
The change the date would be, you would be changing the regular rules of procedure, but the rules do say that it should be amended at a regular
Regular
meeting.
schedule, yeah, right.
Which, I mean, you have one in like 2 days or 3 days, so I'm
Right.
not sure.
Mr. Branham, is there an urgency to do that today?
No, I just, yeah. So the earlier motion and the vote on that motion, that was proper according to the county attorney. Is that right?
Correct.
Mr.
First one, yes.
Attorney?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, happy to withdraw and defer that matter to April 4th or some later date.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Branham. So we will move on to item B, election of officers. Chair will entertain a motion on secretary.
I'm
Before we move
confused
on.
now. I'm confused.
All right.
May I comment before we move on?
Sure.
We have it
Mr.
here
Young.
in our agenda, amendment of the rules and procedure. So if we had a question for another amendment to the rules that we did prior, isn't this still an okay time to talk about this? And I also see an error in this agenda we're gonna look at all this. This is item 4, not item 5 that we're looking at. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, for today's agenda, special call, we got 1, 2, 3. That's Roman numeral 5. Should be 4.
They have it.
We're looking at we're dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's as we're going through these things today. So I want to look at that. Also, did we have our public notice announcement? Did you read that in the record that this has been sent out?
Yep.
Okay, I felt like we skipped through it. Okay. So we're still on the amendment of the rules and procedure. And I was at both meetings September. I haven't missed a meeting. I live in Richland County. I care about my county. That's why I'm up here. I applied like anybody else could. All right. So if we can continue that second aspect, I was very interested in moving our election to December to give the new person an opportunity to be trained up. We are appointed by county council. We're a recommended body. We don't know when county council could replace one of us in a new year. So I thought that was very important. So if we can continue to talk on that before we move on, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Youngie. The only reason I brought up whether or not we should consider waiting until our special call meeting is because that's the rules. I think part of what we're struggling with here today is that in September and in December, we violated the rules, which caused us to break a law. And so I just want to be clear that what we're doing is we're trying to make sure that we don't break the law again and that we follow the rules according to the statute and according to the rules that have been set forth by the commission. Does that make sense? So part of what I want to just make sure that if there's no rush to do this, we're meeting again in 2 days for a regularly scheduled meeting. So unless I'm missing something, I want somebody to explain to me what is the rush to do this when we have a regularly scheduled meeting coming up in 2 days. Mr. Yonke?
I have an opinion on that matter. At our regularly scheduled meeting, that's the time for the public to give us input on our land development code rewrite and the land development code map, which I
Sure.
feel is pivotal right now in our county. This is a special call meeting that we have of our own time, of our own Friday morning to discuss this. So what's the rush to not have a discussion?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Price, but I thought our call meeting today was to discuss the land development code. Is that right? And I don't think the call meeting was to discuss what we're discussing today.
No, sir. This is the special called meeting.
Yes.
For what we're discussing now. We're to talk about the land development code as the work session, which will take place immediately following this special called meeting.
Yes, so we will talk about the LCD once we are complete with this discussion, Mr. Yonke. Does that make sense?
That's making sense to me. I feel like that's the point I was trying to make. We're still in a special called meeting right now to discuss these items. Instead of like kicking the can down the road, we're still here at item 4A. If anyone else wanted to make any comments, I feel like this is a good time to do so. That's all
Dennis,
I
did
had.
you have a
Thank you.
comment?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
You know, the county attorney gave his opinion. I read it. You know, we are sitting right here at the amendments of rules and procedures. We have meetings and we keep kicking the can down the road for a lot of things. And I mean, this is a rule that we could simply just take a vote on, see the will of the commission. And it doesn't affect anything until the next December meeting. Like, can we just not get it over with so that we can start back working on this LDC so we can get all this stuff behind us? I mean, I don't see any legal ramifications for something that we're trying to do to help us that we talked about in March of 2020, again in December of 2020, and a couple of other meetings, specifically the September and December meeting. I mean, we just keep putting things off. I'm just ready to move forward and just get this LDC over with, to hear what the public has to say, dig into it deeper and deeper, and do what's best for Richland County.
Totally agree with you, Mr. Dennis, and I think that was our sentiment in September and in December, but we broke the law. And so all I'm simply saying to you and to this commission is that as we think about what we're doing here, let's just make sure that there is no, if we decide that we're going to delay this, then it's the election of officers, and then we're back to the agenda at hand, which is to focus on the LCD. So if this commission wants to take a vote on that, I'm fine with taking a vote on it. I will not support that because I don't think we're at a point where we need to just immediately do that today.
Mr.
But if there's, Ms. Rising, and I think Mr. Branham has a motion on the floor on that.
I was going to say, I'll try to be as polite and dignified as possible. You know, when I asked earlier, Attorney Wright, is there a problem when we are given information that's false? I was not at the December meeting. I was ill. I had surgery that week. And I'm not going to go back over everything. I'm going to be as polite as possible. But I think that Mr. Gilchrist has laid out the situation quite accurately. And I think it's very, very important for us as a commission to be wise enough to follow the advice of a county attorney. Now, I was personally insulted when I read the written response of one of the commissioners to what you laid out to us. my understanding that you are the county attorney. And sometimes before the public, we might say, well, I just want to go and do the land development. I don't want to waste people's time. But I have institutional knowledge, factual knowledge, that there's something else amiss. I'll just say this. I think that everything this morning has been laid out beautifully, and I think that Mr. Gilchrist stated the situation accurately, and you did too. We broke the law twice, and there are ramifications for that. To avoid that and possible legal ramifications that might be worse, I think it's best for us to follow your advice and at our next regular meeting, which would be Monday, elect our officers, plain and simple.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Who is that, Mr. Brandon?
no,
Oh,
Right.
okay, Mr. Attorney.
right. As far as the law, I think that the meeting today is to correct I guess, the put errors from the previous meetings.
Right.
Which I think that to do that, as far as the actual election of officers, I think that needs to be done the first time y'all meet, whether it's special or regular, which is now.
Okay, yeah.
As far as the amendment of the procedure to change the date, your rules say that that needs to be done at a regularly scheduled meeting. And that's your rules. That's not the statute, that's your rules.
Sure.
So as far as the amendment to change the date, if you want to follow your rules, that would be at the next meeting, the first, because since it's a regular scheduled meeting.
Right.
But I think the elections have to happen today so that we aren't in violation of the law.
Totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, that's, yes, sir, Ms. Dennis.
So, okay, I understand what you're saying. But we can still have discussion like right now on it. We don't have to take a vote on that, correct?
Oh, we can discuss it.
I mean, it's on the agenda, so you can discuss
Yeah,
it,
we
but
discuss it.
to actually
That's-
change the rules should
Right.
be whenever you meet at a regular meeting.
Correct.
So, when I look at changing that rule, that's something that we've talked about. Because even when if we go to change that rule at the next meeting, and we change it to December, the acting chair and vice chair would still be the acting chair and vice chair to December 31st, right at 11:59. So
yeah.
if we had any other special meetings, we got that. But then, that would allow the new chair and vice chair, secretary, to receive training however they want to receive it. I mean, when I got elected, I sought out personal, training for Robert's rules, because I didn't, I knew them, but I didn't know what a chair and vice chair does. I mean, that's just one thing. So I sought out that. And that gave me the opportunity at the next meeting to, get my feet wet and do a few things like that. But, I just think it's a good rule to have, to hold it then. I mean, we don't have to take a vote on it now. I'm perfectly fine with not taking a vote on it now. But I mean, all this was brought up because of those two rule changes. So I figured, let's talk about them now. And then at the next meeting, according to the county attorney, that's when we do it, whether it passes or fails.
I'm good with that.
I just want to say
Any-
this, and
Ms.
I
Robinson?
guess God Almighty won't allow me to be quiet on it. I heard the terminology acting chair, acting vice chair. No. And this business about the training, that's what bothers me, because it was stated, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Presiding Officer Gilchrist, that the so-called urgency was because some wanted there to be an opportunity for there to be transition, whereby the incoming new person could be mentored or tutored or trained by the outgoing person. And I remember specifically asking, in the time that the transition was made from Mr. Gilchrist to Mr. Brabham, had that occurred even once? And the answer was no. And so when we say, well, there's a reason for it, the rationale, and I want this training and so forth, I distinctly recall When I first came on this commission years ago, it was required that we have certain training. And I know the law is written wherein if there's certain occupations wherein the training is not required, but I went through my training. Anyway, my point is it bothers me when I'm given a verbal explanation as to, well, the reason we really want to do this is because we want some training and transition and so forth. And then when you find out it's been months and months and months, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gilchrist, has anyone that was new reached out to you, even as of today, April 1st, for this so-called urgent training?
Well, in light of the fact that,
And mentorship.
that I'm back as your chairman now, obviously we've not had the training, but I would ask staff this question, just so that you can help everybody understand this. In previous years, prior to that discussion about training, was there ever an effort to have a transition of period so that the incoming officers would have some access to some type of training? Has it ever occurred?
No, sir.
Okay.
During that time.
So this was a new thing.
I would like to state that this was initiated by staff. And the only reason why it was initiated by staff is because, when we will look at other bodies, especially whether it be elected or appointed, that normally there was a time period in between when the officers were elected to the time when they actually will start, serving, I guess, on their boards or, committees. So, for example, we looked at the county council. They have theirs at a special called meeting in January, but that chair really doesn't really kind of take this position until usually in February when they have their formal meeting. I mean, you could, whether you want to look at it even from the President of the United States. Elections take place in November. They don't serve until January. But so there's always been a little gap in between. This was just not saying anything was done wrong or just looking at anything in the past. What we were just saying is this would be a good opportunity that at the end of the year, if we know we're going to already elect somebody, probably not until February. So you remember, there's going to be a gap in between anyway. That person would have a chance, talk to staff. Maybe there's some things that they don't understand going forward. Maybe they're relatively new. Maybe there's some things that they would like to change going forward with how we do, conduct our meetings. And that was the only intent, was just to give an opportunity for us to know who we're going to be dealing with and kind of establish a plan going into that new year.
If I could.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
I do want to say I did appreciate, that time frame. Mr. Gilchrist and I did have several conversations. We didn't sit together and meet face to face, like for the special purpose of talking about transitioning one chair to another. But we did have several conversations and have since that time. And then, the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Price and staff just to work through how the preparation of agendas works and, just to see how we want to fine tune things and then be able to talk about the things that were coming up in that calendar year were very helpful. Having said all of that, my individual experience shouldn't necessarily be the basis for what appropriate. And I just want to say that I appreciate all the conversation, the discussion today. My second motion to amend the rules of procedure is withdrawn. And, I'm ready to participate in officer elections whenever the commission is.
Thank you, Mr. Branham. And just for the record, and Ms. Price, thank you for reminding all of us that this was not initiated by the Planning Commission, but it was actually initiated by the staff. Because I think that may have been some confusion there, but that's how that was actually originally initiated. Any additional questions on that subject?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am, Ms.
First of all,
Price.
I appreciate what Mr. Bradman just stated. You mentioned agenda items, Mr. Price. I don't care who answers this. It might be Mr. Gilchrist, Brabham, the attorney, Mr. Price. In terms of appropriateness, who is supposed to prepare the agenda for our meetings?
Well, it's always been staff that prepares the agendas.
I'm not asking who has done it, who's supposed to, because that seems strange to me. I'm just curious.
don't
I
know
mean,
if-
like, if you have a
Chair, I don't-
chairperson, or is it done in consultation? Should it be done? Or maybe even the attorney can give us his opinion as to who is supposed to do the agenda for such meetings. I'm
Chair?
serious.
I think I can actually shed some light on that.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr.
Looking at a few things, it would be the secretary that would put the agenda together, and then that agenda should go to the chair, and the chair should reach out to the vice chair, look over everything, and then the agenda is sent back to go out. And in the past meetings that, elections of officers that we've had, we've always said, hey, staff is the secretary. So they're the ones that have prepared it, and the chair and the vice chair should have been looking over it. And I know the one meeting that I had, I looked at it before it went out. So I think that's how it's supposed to be set up from what I've been reading. Because I mean, I got a lot of notes from that, and I think, it comes from them because they're the ones getting the stuff in from the public and would put that together. And then,
County Attorney, would you like to comment on that?
Okay, generally, I think it would be a secretary that would do that. So the putting together of the agenda for this body would be the secretary, and if staff is the secretary, that would be staff.
All right. Thank you. All right, no more discussion. We are down now to the election of officers, and the chair will entertain some nominees.
Mr. Chair,
And I'm sorry, and we will start with the why don't we start with the secretary? How about that? All right. Pricer, did you?
I didn't know you were going in that reverse order. I was getting ready to nominate someone moving for chair.
Oh, okay, yeah, if it's okay, we'll start with secretary. Floor is open. Now, don't have us do all this and then nobody want to nominate nobody. So, let's go. Let's do it.
or
Secretary.
the secretary would be doing the agenda, would be coming to the county and getting the staff to do it, or do we follow the state statute saying that we can elect staff as secretary, since they get all the emails in, they get the correspondence. We don't have public emails for stuff to be sent to us. So, I mean, that comes,
But it's still their job to be the staff of the commission. So if in fact we do elect a secretary, obviously, it's no different than the officers of any other elected body. The staff is still the
Right.
staff that will work with that person. Does that make sense, Mr. Dennis?
it does.
Okay. You had some great ideas about, I mean, you correct, and you want to be secretary?
I mean, I get up every morning at 4 a.m. to read this LDC and work on that before my real job. So that's just,
Too much.
yeah. I mean, I have a family and a business, so I can't do it all.
Got it. All right. Are there any motions on the floor? Come on, y'all. Yaki?
Staff. The public comes to them. Like Mr. Dennis said, there's no public email.
Mr. Attorney, do we nominate staff to do that? Is that how that works?
I don't think you necessarily have to nominate staff, but if
Yeah.
you don't choose a secretary, it kind of automatically
Automatically
defaults to staff.
defaults to that. Okay, got it. All right, so nobody wants to be secretary. Okay, well then we'll default to the staff then. All right. Moving on to vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Gary Dennis for vice chair.
Okay. I'd also like to renominate Beverly Frierson. Anybody else? Okay. If we're not hearing any additional nominations, the floor is closed, and we will take a vote. Mr. Price, roll call vote for Mr. Dennis.
Those in favor of Gary Dennis for vice chair, Yonke,
Aye.
Carlisle, Ryerson,
Nay.
Metz,
Aye.
Branham,
Aye.
Grady, Taylor, Gilchrist,
Nay.
Dennis.
Aye.
Right, that vote, for Gary Dennis, was 5-4, for Gary Dennis for vice chair.
That is a unanimous vote. We take a vote on the second nominee, or is that how we, or is that it? Is,
I think, because you do have a nominee, I think he should take the vote.
all right?
All right, so.
Follow your roll call vote, Ms. Price.
All right, those in favor of Beverly Frierson for vice chair, Yonke,
Nay.
Carlisle, Frierson,
Yay.
Metz, Branham, Grady,
Aye.
Taylor. I'm sorry, what was that? Gilchrist,
Aye.
Dennis.
Nay.
Right, that motion would, well, I don't know if it's necessarily a motion, but, votes were 4-5 in favor. So, as far as the vice chair, Gary Dennis received a majority of the votes.
Vice Chairman, welcome aboard.
Sir, thank you, commissioners, for instilling your trust in me. I promise not to let you guys down. We have a long way forward in the light of things that have happened, and I'm going to work hard to make sure we don't hit those areas again.
Sounds good. All right. Moving on to chair. Floor is open.
I would like to nominate Mr. Stephen Gilchrist.
I'll nominate Mr. Jason Branham.
Okay. Any additional nominations?
Who made the motion for?
Donkey.
Seconds on anything. I don't want things thrown out, so we might need to do that again.
The county chair, can the county attorney confirm we don't need seconds for nominations
gonna
on
ask him.
officer elections?
Right. Well, if you're doing it in the way that you're making a motion, all motions need a second, but if you're just having
Asking
just
for the
the
floor.
elections, you can have the elections.
Yeah. Ms. Brown. All right. Floor is, so we have two nominations on the floor. Any others? I'll nominate Mr. Taylor as well.
I respectfully decline.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right. Seeing none, Mr. Price will take the vote.
Okay, first one is for Stephen Gilchrist, for chair. Yonke,
Nay.
Carlisle, Frierson,
Yay.
Metz, Branham, Grady, Taylor,
Nay.
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 Gilchrist,
Hey.
Dennis.
Nay.
Okay. It was, 1 in favor, 8 against.
Yeah.
So the next one would be for, Jason Branham. Go to the roll call. Yonke,
Aye.
Carlisle, Frierson,
Nay.
Metz, Branham,
Aye.
Grady,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Gilchrist,
Aye.
Dennis.
Aye.
Right, Jason Branham has received 8 votes to 1. He's now been
Yes,
elected
so,
chair.
so you get to come on over here now.
I can hang tight. We're almost done.
Not yet.
Right.
Oh, no,
So-
I got, that's right, I got a couple more things, knock it on out. Other business. Thank you, Mr. Brandon, by the way, for offering up to serve again, and thank you, commissioners.
Thank you for your.
Mr. Gilchrist, for your time.
Absolutely. All right, other business, anything else? Okay, Chair entertain motion to adjourn. Special call meeting.
Moved.
All right. Mr. Price, take a roll call vote real quick, and then we'll get this other party started.
All right, those in favor of adjournment, Yonke,
Aye.
Carlisle, Frierson,
Aye.
Metz, Branham,
Aye.
Grady,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Gilchrist,
Aye.
Dennis.